Talk to Me's done something that horror movies have been trying to do for many years. Not suck. And well, it's not that easy. You see, there are a couple different things they had to do in order to make sure they didn't suck, and I kind of want to talk about that because it's pretty impressive. And so that's what we're doing today. Welcome to KenoKino. Let's talk about how to Talk to Me break the teen horror movie curse.
They like you.
Well, in order to answer that, we need to first talk about what exactly is the teen horror movie curse. And well, for that, we can look at three different examples: bam, boom, and bop. I don't really know if that's going to work in the editing thing, but it's there. All of these movies have one thing in common. They all have a gimmick. And now the gimmick for Truth or Dare right here is that, well, they play Truth or Dare. And it's all spooky and murdery, and there's a ghost that kills people, and yeah, that's their gimmick. Cool. The gimmick for Look Away, right here maybe? The gimmick for Look Away is that this woman looks into a mirror, or this girl looks into a mirror, and then her darkest self comes out of the mirror and acts out her darkest desire, something like that. Also pretty trash from what I remember. Pretty garbage. No fun. It gets worse. Because then you have Slender Man, and now Slender Man's just, well, it's the copy pasta story, and then they made a movie into it, like, I don't even know, like 8 years after it was relevant. And they did terribly on that as well, because it's just a cash grab. That's their problem. Now, the cash grab. Now that's a good way of going into the next thing, because that's what Talk to Me isn't. Is that it definitely isn't a cash grab. You see, Talk to Me was a passion project by two YouTubers named Danny and Michael from the Racka Racka YouTube channel. So Danny and Michael have been making movies for a very long time, but not in the way that you think. You know, when you picture the creators of Talk to Me, if you haven't seen them already, maybe you picture a Harry Potter looking fella or a gal even, and they look very serious about film. Yeah, not exactly. You see, Danny and Michael are two knuckleheads who have made a lot of goofy movies, a lot of crazy stunts, and did a lot of weird things throughout their years on YouTube, and well, they're pretty darn good at it. And so this is actually their first kind of foray into something very different from what they've done before. You see, this was their passion project. This is something they actually put their time consideration into with no big studio behind them. I know they had some good funding from different companies with themselves and some friends, I believe, some producers in the matter. But the point is that you're not looking at a Universal Pictures or Paramount or WB or MGM, anything like that, right? You're getting two indie filmmakers actually making a indie movie, which is very impressive. And then of course they get picked up and distributed by A24. And A24, we all know, it's very filmmaker friendly. They very much so put filmmakers first, which allow films to actually be kind of unique and different, whether that's good or bad. They do that. And so that's why Talk to Me has a bit of a different feel to it for sure from these other movies, because one, there's not really much of a profit motive from the inception of the movie. It was more so them kind of wanting to show different sides of them that they don't get to in their normal YouTube stuff. The other thing, of course, is we're going to talk about the gimmick. You know, the gimmick that we see in the other three we already talked about, but with Talk to Me, their gimmick is pretty interesting.
Put your hand on it. Now say, talk to me.
You see, the premise, of course, isn't exactly anything crazy, but it's still a good premise, and what hammers it home is that it makes sense, and you kind of get to understand, and there are rules that you adhere to as you go through and watch the movie, which a lot of other movies don't have. That they, as the movie goes on, things just kind of get all wacky and weird because they thought of the gimmick, but they didn't really think of anything else that surrounds it, and so they just kind of, they had like, hey, let's have them play Truth or Dare. What's gonna happen? Who are the characters? What are they gonna do? We'll figure it out later. You know, it'll all just kind of come to. But the Truth or Dare thing, that's solid. That's the part that's the most important. And that clearly was not the case with Talk to Me. Is that they definitely had a good gimmick and a good premise, but it's a very character-driven story. So Talk to Me's gimmick is that there's a ceramic hand, and when you touch the hand or when you hold it, then you say the words "Talk to Me." You can communicate with another realm, a spirit realm of sorts. Different spirits that will come and appear and hold your hand, taking the place of the ceramic hand. Now, off the bat, it kind of sounds, you know, a little haywire. It sounds like just kind of a silly little gimmick. But then the movie does something that a lot of horror movies never do. They explain how it works, you know. In other movies, they're just like, oh, you know, it's a curse, man. It's a curse. What are you gonna do? It's a curse. or they're like, oh, you know, it's just it's a burial ground. You know, that's how that happened, obviously. But this movie actually gives a pretty nice and cool explanation as to how this ceramic hand allows you to communicate with the dead. Now, it does come from the kids who have found the hand or who own the hand, so it's not exactly written in stone for sure. It's just kind of you're just kind of meant to led to believe that whatever the kids say kind of goes, and that kind of happens throughout the movie. Is that as the movie goes on, the kids just kind of say like, "Oh, it works like this" or "it works like that," and nobody's really there to debunk them. You just kind of have to take their word for it, and for the most part, it leads up to be pretty true. So the kids say that the hand was originally a medium's hand, someone who can communicate with spirits and also, of course, relay the information to our living world. And well, when the medium died, a bunch of their friends decided, hey, let's cut off their hand, of course, and embalm it, and then use it for our pleasure, apparently. And then it's coated in ceramic, and underneath the ceramic is apparently supposed to be the medium's real hand. Now that's the story we're given, but we're given a story. That's a very important thing, because so many horror movies don't give you anything. They tell you what's going on and you just kind of have to rock with it. But here we at least have a good reason, a good explanation as to why this is what it is. And well, it works. It works really well because we have rules. Because not only do we know what we're doing, but we know how we're doing it. And as the film goes on, we learn more about the spirits and what they can do and different things that are happening in this little spirit realm of sorts.
Who's up?
I'll do it.
Cannot go for more than 90 seconds. Am I clear?
What happens after 90 seconds?
Don't want to stay.
The characters are real humans that do real human things. Some of them are assholes, some of them are nice, some of them are fine. They're not all good or bad or this or that. They do real things. They act real, which is something that a lot of horror movies really can never get down. I think watching Talk to Me, there was never one point in the movie where I thought, why is this person doing this? This doesn't make any sense. Watching them, understanding and learning the characters, you understand what they're doing, why they're doing it as time goes on. Like, for example, our main character's a jackass. Our main character's a jerk, right? She keeps doing really jerky things. But it makes sense. You know, she wasn't like the most sweetheart, amazing, cool person in the world. And then all of a sudden she just does one really weird jerk thing that happens from time to time in other movies. It's not like she was a really nice and cool character, a very sweet person, and then all of a sudden she does something that's a real big jerk move. And then we're just kind of like, what? Why did they do that? No, it makes sense because we've known this person is a jerk. From the very get-go, we see a lot of the jerky things that they do as the movie goes on, and a lot of the selfish things that they do. That all makes sense, and it all works as the movie goes throughout, that they are that person, that they're dealing with all of their things as time goes on. It all works. That's that character, and each of the characters all have their own ways of being that all works and makes sense as the movie goes on throughout. They don't do anything that doesn't make sense. Maybe you don't agree with what they do, but you can understand how a person, a real person, would do what they did. Now, the other part of the teen curse that a lot of movies miss is the teen part, is that a lot of the times they try and depict like culture on the internet or high school culture or college culture even. It's always done in the most corporate, garbage way imaginable. It's always done 5 years too late from whatever meme or joke they're referencing, and always comes off in the most awkward way because it's not used the way that any normal kid would use it, right?
Have you seen the group chat? They're doing it again tonight. No. Please. It's my mom's remembrance day. I just want to forget about it.
So like most movies that are trying to capture the teen market, they'll say fam like 8 years after fam became a thing, or be like LOL 19 years after LOL became a thing, or it's just all these weird things. And then they refer to like, oh yeah man, YouTube, that's where I watch PewDiePie. Like, movies still reference PewDiePie. No offense to PewDiePie, he's just not the guy anymore, you know? It's just all these things that corporates just kind of think that relate to kids, and they just try and use it, and they're like Snapchat, Instagram, da-da-da-da-da. It's all garbage that all comes off as the most phony thing imaginable because they don't understand it. They're pretending to. But, like I said, these are made by two YouTubers, the Racka Racka channel. Now, I don't know why I said it like that. the Racka Racka channel, Danny and Michael. Now these two, they understand the culture, they've grown up with it, right, and they live in it currently. And so as you watch the movie, you get to kind of relate to the things that are happening with the teenagers in the movie. Is that when you see this kid fall asleep watching a YouTube video with one AirPod in, one AirPod out, so that way you're not laying on the AirPod as you're trying to fall asleep, that's such a real experience. That's a real thing that we all go through. And you see kids singing in the cars, belting out, doing their whole thing. You know, maybe you don't relate to it, but I'm sure somebody else does. And all of these things that kind of all work together. Like, for the first time ever, when I see that they have Snapchat on their phone, it looks like Snapchat. It really does. I don't know if you ever looked at the phone screen in a movie or TV show. It always looks awful. It looks terrible. It looks 100% green screened onto the screen and terrible looking. I'm sure that's probably what they did, but at least they made it look real. It looked like real Snapchats being posted or being watched, and it made sense. It all made so much sense. And that's just the biggest thing, is that everything in the movie made sense. As you go through, there are things that aren't explained. There are things that, of course, are up for interpretation, but there's nothing that you feel like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I don't get why that happened. I don't understand this or that. And so it's really cool to see. And that's another reason why the movie works so well as opposed to other horror movies, is that it actually takes the time to make the writing, make the characters, make the gimmick, everything all makes sense and work. I mean, one of my favorite sequences in the movie is this thing that I would never do because it just terrifies the shit out of me, but I know people who would do this. At a certain point in the movie, of course, what they all do is they all gather around and they just start all taking turns with the hand. One person has a very bad experience with the hand, and then they leave. Then everyone else just starts joking around, doing it again. The other guy comes back, he's like, "Ah, okay, fine, I'll do it." And it's so real. It's a very raw, normal feeling that people can relate to. Is that it's like you have friends that you fight with, or friends that you're upset at, and then as time goes on, you're all just kind of joking around, having fun, having a good time, and everything kind of washes away. And it's done in a non-lazy way. It's done in a way that just feels like a real-world experience that people would have. And then for my last point, we're going to talk about the horror aspect. Now, the horror aspect is a really, really, really easy part to get wrong, because a lot of people will cheap out, jump scares every 3 seconds, and just kind of hope for the best. You know, they design their monsters, they flash on the screen, and then that's what you get. But Talk to Me does a very good job of not jumping out every 2 seconds, and when they do jump out, it's not always in the way that you would expect. There are still jump scares because every movie has them, but Talk to Me does a really good job of subverting your expectations of when they're going to happen and exactly what's going to happen in that moment. So, for example, when Mia, our main character, first does the Talk to Me moment, she kind of looks at her friends and is jokingly saying it because she doesn't believe it's going to work. She says, "Talk to me," which is supposed to invite the spirit. And she's looking at them, and then she looks back, and then that's where the thing is at, and it jumps and it hits you right then and there, right? Normally you would expect the "talk to me," and then bam, jump, right? That's kind of how other movies do it. So it's very impressive to see that done in multiple different ways. Because later on in the movie, you see our young kid, Riley, he wants to test it out, and he wants to try it out. And when he does that, there's a whole thing that happens, which I won't go into about the story necessarily, but we can talk about the jump scare. When Riley does it, he's allowing the spirit to communicate with Mia, and then all of a sudden, he goes bananas. I mean, he loses his damn mind and starts trying to kill himself in these vulgar, messed up ways that you really didn't see coming that way either. And that just kind of is a common theme throughout the movie. It's not that it's not predictable, but it's more so that knowing how it's going to happen, knowing when it's going to happen, it's not always the easiest thing to catch. It keeps you on your toes, and it's a lot of fun to see. Like, for me personally, I have a hard time watching horror movies. I'm a little scaredy cat. So a lot of times I'm kind of sometimes I'm peeking out through my finger here, trying to make sure I don't get blasted in the face with a bunch of scary stuff going on. And there were times in the movie where I was like, I don't know if I should be guarded or not guarded at this moment. And well, that's exactly what you want from a horror movie. You never want to know when you're going to get hit next. And they did it. They impressively, very admirably did it. So I believe that's all I have to say on the matter, really, is this is how I believe that Talk to Me has broke the teen horror movie curse. Is that they were two bros who wanted to do it because they had the love of the game. They wanted to show their passion, not because they're here for money. They had real characters that made a lot of sense. You know, as you're watching the characters, you start to relate or you start to dislike them, but you never feel as though this isn't a real person doing a real thing. It had a good gimmick, a gimmick that made sense, that is explained, that you get to kind of have a good time following the rules in the movie, trying to explore how things happened, why they happened, and what was going on. It's not something that you get in a lot of horror movies, believe it or not. And then, of course, the teen experience. Now, the teen experience is one that you'll hardly ever find done right in a movie, or let alone a horror movie, but they nailed it. They killed it. They made real experiences that teens and young people go through all the time, and they made it feel very genuine and true, that anyone can relate. And not just a goofy, out-of-touch movie trying to capitalize on a younger audience. And then, of course, last but not least, they nailed the horror. They did a very good job, sparingly using jump scares, making the entire atmosphere a very creepy and very ominous atmosphere that builds a lot of tension and creates a lot of really great moments in the movie that horror movies just don't do enough anymore. So, applaud to the Racka Racka boys. Thank you, A24, for putting your faith in them, and it's very cool to see this movie out and about and actually be very good. And I hope to see more from the boys, and I hope to see that this is a good step forward in the direction for making real good younger audience movies. So hats off to Racka Racka, making a teen horror movie that broke the teen horror movie curse. This has been KenoKino. I am Keno, and well, I'll catch you in the next one. Later.